Many didn't think it was possible, me included, but the 100 Girlfriends anime has officially been confirmed not only to be getting Season 3, but also coming next year. Or this year, depending on when we get this video out, in 2026. So we're going to be returning to what started everything on my channel with 100 Girlfriends by trying to predict how Season 3 may shape out before it premieres. Now, having watched Season 2, we have learned one big lesson, which was my downfall of my prediction for Season 2. I was under the assumption that they would always want to introduce a new girlfriend at the start of an episode, but the introduction of Kurumi and Mimi disproved that as they were introduced in the back half of their respective episodes. So that gives us some more wiggle room to work with structure-wise. And let me tell you, trying to work out Season 3 took more out of me than Season 2 ever did. I had like 3 different outcomes on how I feel the season could go. So now that we have a good grasp on how they structure the season, I think I got it. So let's not waste any time. And if you're new here, I'm Moonlight150, and I cover all things 100 Girlfriends here on my channel, from the anime to the manga and everything in between. So leave a like and subscribe if you have any interest in the series. Let's jump right into it. Oh, and slight spoiler warning if you only watch the anime. I won't go over everything, but I will be discussing who these girlfriends are and some minor plot points. You have been warned. No better place to start than with the chapter that begins Volume 7 where Season 2 left off. The introduction of Chiyo, though I could see some kind of recap beforehand like they had at the beginning of Season 2. Season 3 will have a lot cleaner start than Season 2 where I couldn't decide if they would cut the His Name chapter or if they would start with Kurumi's introduction. This time it's much more straightforward, as we'll start with As You Expect with Chiyo's introduction, and our Meet the Family chapter of Chiyo-chan's family guidance. Cue Twitter's meltdown to not only Chiyo being Rentero's cousin— What? What the f—
What? Can you marry your cousin?
And being a girlfriend.
Oh, hell no!
But also just being an unlikable character in their introduction, and saying the whole show has fallen off right out of the gate in the first episode of Season 3. Next up is probably the easiest part of this whole video. Chapter 53 is basically a commercial. Aptly named, this is basically a commercial. And considering all the merchandise that is featured in the chapter is outdated, being that this chapter is from 2021, there really is no need for this chapter to be animated. At all. It's an easy cut. Moving on. Episode 2 would start with a personal favorite chapter of mine, the cancellation of the Rentero family on-campus kissing activities, and then go right into the Mimi and Meimei focus chapter of Everyone Loves a Training chapter, which honestly is great that we'll be getting this because the rest of the cast had events like the baseball game and the food eating competition to bond over, whereas both Mimi and Meimei were not present for those events. So it's nice to give the latter two girlfriends of Season 2 a focus episode after they lost out on that screen time in Season 2. Episode 3 is where we start to get a bit dicey, and by dicey I mean we start cutting up girlfriend introductions. I originally wouldn't have done this, but like I said, with Season 2 having Kurumi and Mimi's introduction in the back half of episodes, this changes things. So Episode 3 would open up with the Lap Pillow Champion playoff chapter of 56. Originally I did cut this chapter for not being that interesting for a whole episode segment, but after a reread I thought that the anime team could really expand upon the idea of this chapter, maybe make the dream sequences go on for just a tad longer, and go a bit more over the top for each girlfriend. Really lean into their gag comedy specialty. Then after all of that nonsense, we dive deeper into even more nonsense with the first half of Ms. Natty's introduction, and the series gets cancelled yet again on Twitter for the student-teacher relationship.
This young man is not really a victim, but someone that's living the ultimate teenage boy's fantasy. But
particularly with how forceful she is right off the bat. But which one gets the series cancelled more? Chiyo or Ms. Natty? Vote now on your phones. With the week for the public to be able to cool down, Episode 4 would start with Ms. Natty's freedom time and the assembling of the Freedom Avengers. I'm personally not a fan of breaking up girlfriend introductions and Meet the Family chapters, but it can't be helped. My original draft took out the Lap Pillow chapter in order to make the Natty intro chapters into one episode, but I ended up scrapping that. So what follows this? Why, it's the Prison Club Break chapter, where the entirety of the segment takes place stuck in a photo booth with a ticking time bomb fearing that they are all eventually going to have to pee at some point. Cinema. Boy, I'm glad I wasn't covering the series back then during these kind of chapters. Would have been hard to make a video on. So yeah, we just added a teacher as a girlfriend, and the following chapter is they're just stuck in a photo booth, and the big plot is they're worried that they're gonna have pee all over each other. I think this series is gonna get cancelled soon. Episode 5 is where things get a little interesting, because it'll be the first time Rentero is alone with a girlfriend that isn't an introduction chapter. And this is also the first group date chapter that doesn't involve everyone. We get both Chapter 60, Boyish Girlfriend, which is our first one-on-one date of Rentaro being with Iku on a solo date, as well as the outing of Rentaro and the three smallest girlfriends at the time of Kusuri, Shizuka, and Chiyo in Chapter 61 of My First Errand. I also originally had both of these on the chopping block, My First Errand specifically, but after a restructuring that I'll talk about later, these came back into the fold. And the fact that both of them are back-to-back is kind of nice. It'll give the anime-only fans a nice glimpse into the fact that a small group or even a singular girlfriend can be the focus of an entire episode segment. It's not always going to be the massive group of girlfriends. And like I say in my reviews of the chapters many times, it's one of the strongest aspects of this series, that the writer allows the series to go so slowly and spend time with each girlfriend individually. Halfway through the season and we hit the big event, the one they are focusing on with the advertisement going into the season with the current teaser poster that we already have. That being the first idol arc. And yes, dear viewer, I guess minor spoiler if you are an anime only, I did say first idol arc. Kinda feels like going back in time to talk to people about World War I and they look at me like, what do you mean one?
Oh, sorry, spoilers.
Thankfully, with this arc being 2 chapters and with how the chapters and episodes have lined up so far, this arc will just be the entirety of one episode and will not spill into another episode, which feels very fitting as this feels like the big event for this season. After the thrills of the rise and fall of the Rentaro family idol group, it's back to business as we are introduced to Yamame in episode 7. And unlike with Ms. Natty, where her intro and Meet the Family segments were split between episodes, thankfully Yamame's intro and her garden tour chapter of 65 will fit cleanly in one episode. Speaking of fitting cleanly in one episode, we got another jam-packed one in episode 8 with a Sea Otter Meet Hot Pot Sumo tournament arc. And though this arc is a staggering 3 chapters in the manga like the Tsundere Lost arc, I think that since it's not the season finale nor a serious storyline like the aforementioned Tsundere Lost arc, and given the faster pace of animation, they could cram these 3 chapters into a singular episode. And when I mentioned a restructuring earlier, this was one of them. I originally had this arc as 1.5 episodes, but I think now it's most likely this arc will just be one entire episode, instead of bleeding into the next. Massaging our way into the home stretch of the season with episode 9, that being Momiji's introduction and her Meet the Family chapter of the Fondling Festival of chapters 69 and 70.
Nice.
Thankfully another episode fully dedicated to just introducing a new girlfriend. Pretty clean cut and dry. What will be good about episode 10 is that it's going to give 2 of the most recent girlfriends, that being Chiyo and Ms. Natty, a focus episode segments to get the anime audience some time to really get to know them, and show off some of their qualities with chapter 71, Ms. Natty's Murokan Patrol. This is one of the few chapters where we see Chiyo actually acting like a student council president. Yeah, remember that aspect of the character? Feels like even in the current manga chapters we forget that aspect of her character. And also the fact that Ms. Natty is a teacher who cares about her students and is not some lunatic in a cowgirl outfit. Okay, well, she is, but she also cares about her students. Following that in the same episode, we'll have the Nano-focused chapter of Chapter 72, the Nano-Pushin Prince. Not a whole lot to say about the chapter itself, but this double feature of these 2 chapters should hopefully cement to anime-only watchers what us manga readers have known for a while, and what I said earlier, that this series is crazy enough that they actually spend time with small groups, and even down to one girlfriend as a focus for a story, really making this series stand apart from other harem series where it's usually all the girls all the time. Speaking of all the girls all the time, that leads us right into the first story of episode 11. A personal favorite chapter of mine. Chapter 73, May I Trouble You for a Love Story, where we have another opportunity by the animation team to really spread their creative wings to ramp up the stories of the dates that the girlfriends tell. And with that, we'll be moving on to the final girlfriend of the season. Did I say earlier that Chiyo and or Ms. Natty was going to get this anime cancelled? Yeah, no, let's just throw all that out. It's going to be Yaku. Maybe. Actually, hold on, let me go get all that back. It's going to be all 3 of them. Anyway, back to the actual episode. Which, I know this whole video I've been bemoaning about girlfriend introductions being split among episodes, but imagine episode 11 ending on the same cliffhanger that chapter 74 does, with the zing with Yaku. And not only with Rentaro freaking out with who he has zinged with, zung with? What's the past tense word of zing? Never mind, getting off topic. But the narrator also probably freaking out alongside Rentaro, and thinking that something must be wrong with the script? Maybe even the God of Love could make a new anime-only appearance to make sure that's correct and to tune into the final episode of the season to find out the conclusion of this mishap? The jokes they can do with this kind of cliffhanger really write themselves. Going into the finale would be the following solo adventure between Rentaro and Yaku of chapter 75. Hopefully having this one-on-one time can ease the viewers into the insanity that is having Yaku around as a girlfriend. The last segment of the season could honestly go one of two ways. One thing though, I think they are going to cut Chapter 76, Yaku-san's girlfriend concentration, which I can already hear you in the comments saying that's insane, as that is a Meet the Family chapter, it's integral to the structure of the series, and while I agree, it's one of the least interesting Meet the Family chapters of the entire series, especially if it's one we're supposed to be ending the season on. It's just Yaku being confused and mixing people's quirks around. I could see maybe an abridged version happen quickly as they did with some segments in past episodes, like the food eating competition. Actually,
I have an idea!
you introduce Yaku to the family.
Huh?
Everyone freaks out. But then they transition it right into the actual plot of the episode segment, much like they did with the pool chapter back in season 1, and make it kind of like a throwback, but this time they are going to the onsen for chapter 77. And not much to say for the onsen date except shenanigans ensue, and I'm sure the animation team will have a field day with all the slapstick comedy. Another option instead of the onsen date is chapter 77.1, called Rentero's Fairyland Family. It's a bonus chapter. But it has enough meat to it, and given the freedom of the animation team to expand upon it, could be turned into something unique and interesting to end the season on. But I do think I prefer my idea of the abridged 76 transitioning into chapter 77 onsen date being more plausible. Not much of a season finale though, sadly, being the onsen date. But this was bound to happen, unfortunately. This stretch of the manga wasn't really made for an anime adaptation, as it didn't have a big set piece like the Hanazono Mansion arc or the Tsundere Lost arc to cap off a season. Hence why I kind of doubted we would ever get a season 3. But hey, we're getting one, and they're able to squeeze in 5 girlfriends into these 12 episodes. That's a pretty good pace. So, not the most exciting, and definitely a lot of controversy coming our way, but nonetheless, I'm excited. And wait, Earl, why is there still some time left remaining in this video? Oh yeah, that. It's a popular theory in the community, so we might as well address it. But this season 3 announcement poster is awfully suspicious. Like, we have the usual suspects being front and center as they should be, so we have Chiyo, Miss Natty, Yamame, Momiji, and Yaku as the forefront of the poster. But who else is making this suspiciously perfect circle of dolls on this poster? Kishka, Uto, and Akko? The exact 3 next girlfriends in order?
Coincidence? I think not!
So yeah, something is going on here, and not only that, but something also lines up in the next batch of chapters that would also make up a second core. Let me show you. Boot up the machine again, Earl. We're not done just yet. We're working
overtime
on the assumption that this series would run into a direct of a season 4 or a second core, however you want to word it. It's become a little common in the anime space these days that a lot of series do get these extended seasons. And with the way the next batch of chapters are laid out, I think it's possible. Let me show you. Episode 13 would start off with some nice girlfriend bonding between Hakure and Yamame and Muihihi-e, as they try to impress Rentaro with their sexiness. And it's a Hanazono double package episode, as following that is the Hahari focus chapter of chapter 79, Everyone Was a Co-ed at Some Point, as we take a dive into Hahari's character and her insecurities regarding her relationship with Rentaro. Back to the group date activities in episode 14 with the family's hiking date and their forever fight against the forces of nature. But the real draw of this episode will be the beginning of the introduction of the next girlfriend, that being Kishka. Unfortunately, this will be another instance of an introduction and Meet the Family being split up, with their introduction being at the back end of an episode, but honestly, it can't be helped at this point. Episode 15 would be following up on Kishka's introduction with her Meet the Family, as per tradition, where they would have their big 1 vs 16 battle that looked like something straight out of Demon Slayer, honestly. But after all that fighting, everyone can relax with chapter 83, as they all go out and enjoy some challenge ramen, and promptly put that restaurant lady out of business. Or, not actually. Spoilers for like 130 chapters later. Shh. Next, we'll have our first returning episode premise with everyone's favorite, the baby episode, with chapter 84. Everyone Was a Baby at Some Point returns. You all saw that episode. Though at least this time it won't be Rentaro at his wit's end, as all of his girlfriends from the last time won't be turned into babies, and this time we'll be helping him take care of everyone else.
What the heck?
Following that insanity, we have the other kind of insanity. We get a glimpse into the daily life of Rentaro in chapter 85, A Day with Rentaro, a personal favorite chapter of mine, as we see a day in the life of the love monster himself from sunrise to sunset, as we see from his perspective what it truly takes to spend time with his 17 girlfriends in a single day. Not only that, but we get this great moment at the end with Rentaro and the love god doing like an almost catch up on how he feels regarding this whole situation that he has been thrust into since the beginning of the series. A great introspective from the main character. Man, what I would give to have an updated version of this chapter in the manga, especially to flesh out Rentaro as a character some more. But I'm not going to dwell on that topic for the sake of the anime onlys who may be watching this video. Let's just move on. Episode 16 may have gotten a little real there for a second regarding what it means to be happy with the cards that life deals you, so who wants some Pocky? Yeah, episode 17 would open with chapter 86, that being the Pocky Game Royale. Can't blame Nakamura for wanting to get on the Battle Royale phase at the time. It was 2022, everything was a Battle Royale back then. Then continuing the trend of introducing girlfriends in the back half of episodes, it's the moment everyone has been waiting for. It's Akko's introduction, and all of social media promptly melts from all the fan art that floods onto it from everyone's new favorite girlfriend. Episode 18 finishes up Akko's introductions with Chapter 88, with the Rentaro family's shopping district as everyone partners up to learn about each other's hobbies and the wonders of capitalism. After that, we get a break of everyone losing it over Akko as we get the Mei and Iku focus chapter of Chapter 89, where they head off for a training chapter, once again giving some screen time to some individual characters, which Mei in particular needed since they skipped her solo outing of Chapter 47 back in Season 2. Time to get emotional as episode 19 opens with a lot of people's favorites of a running theme in the series. If it's a Shizuka-focused chapter, it's a tearjerker. This one being chapter 90, Saved by You by Your Book, as Shizuka and Rentaro have a solo outing meeting the author of the book that brought them together back in Shizuka's intro chapter. Though the chapter itself didn't call this out, I could see the anime lean into this with some flashbacks or dialogue calling it out. So immediately following those heartstring pullings, we would have chapter 91, which is the equipment chapter. Normally I would have cut a chapter like this for not having a lot of substance and it's just them being silly, but you'll see at the end here there's really isn't any fat to cut in this second core. So we're getting every chapter adapted. Maybe the anime team will just go wild and we'll get like a full-on Voltron or Transformers parody in this episode. Okay, we went a whole episode without Akko and the masses on social media are getting hungry, so it's best we bring her back with episode 20 and chapter 92, My BFFs. If people weren't fawning over Akko in her introduction episode, they will after this, as this chapter is a great dive into her character and is probably my favorite chapter of bonding between two girlfriends to date. Another chapter that would have been on the chopping block normally would have been the glasses chapter, but as I said, everything is lining up. So I guess after the seriousness of dealing with the emotional baggage of the Akko chapter, I guess we could unwind with the silliness of everyone trying on glasses. Here's really hoping the anime team does something to spice up this episode with some anime exclusive material, because literally this chapter is a bunch of profile picture shots of all the girls wearing glasses and nothing else.
But first, let me take a selfie.
Moving on to the home stretch of the season with episode 21. We have the last girlfriend of the season, that being Uto. And thankfully for the first time and only time of the second core, we're an introduction to meet the family not being split with chapter 94 and 95 happening in the same episode. Take your victory lap, Uto fans. Episode 22 is the calm before the storm. Quite literally, as we open with another chapter I normally would have cut, that being the family toxic jar chapter. But instead of cutting it, we're just going to have this weird little chapter of all the freaks of the family. Okay, they're all freaks, but the freakiest of the freaks get their freak on as they get all trapped in a giant jar. And yeah, that's the entire plot. Now, we're on to the meat of the season. Well, the meat besides meeting Akko, that is. That being the sports festival arc. This right here is why I think a second core is possible. Because this actually feels like a season-ending arc, like the Tsundere Lost arc before it. Whereas like I just talked about with the ending of Season 3 with Yaku and the onsen date feeling unsatisfying as a season ender, this feels much more in line. So episode 22 would have part 1 of this big action piece. Episode 23 would be the entirety of part 2 and 3. I won't go over the plot of it, but if you've read the manga, you know what happens, and I'm sure there are some panels flying across the screen right now to give you an idea of what happens. Don't want to spoil too much for the anime onlys who are watching this, but it's a big dramatic piece, or at least as dramatic as you can for a sports festival at a high school in a comedy series. And it'll end with a big Rentaro family group hug to close out the season. Well, wait, dear viewer, have you been keeping track at home? This is only episode 23. We still got one more episode to go. So this is the opposite of our usual problem. Usually we have too many chapters and need to cut some to fit a seasonal structure, but we had our seasonal structure and it was perfect. We didn't cut anything and still ended at the perfect Rentaro family action piece and hug, and yet we still have a whole episode slot remaining. So what do we do to fill the void? As much as I would love to fill the next episode with Mai's introduction because that is literally the next chapter, you don't end a season like that. So what else could they do? Wait. What's that? It wouldn't be a Moonlight video without me making some wild claim. This video's been pretty mild so far, and to be honest, that was the main reason why it took me so long to get it out. There has been almost no cutting or moving chapters around, so both Season 3 and 4, or Season 3 Core 1 and Core 2, however you want to title it, has been pretty straightforward, so it's made it kind of a bore to write. So it's just a lot of saying, yeah, here comes this chapter, and then this chapter, and then this chapter, just all in order of the manga, so I didn't really have a whole lot to say. But here at the end, I think I finally have something. With this extra slot at the end of the season, much like how chapter 37 was moved from the middle of the season to the end, I think chapter 53 that we cut out earlier in this video could make a comeback, but they retool it. There is also the matter of chapter 100. My prediction is that this episode 24, which would be episode 48 in total of the series, they are going to do some kind of weird fusion of chapter 153 that is going to be an anime exclusive story, where the Renter family is going to do some meta celebration of finishing 4 seasons of anime, but also celebrate the launch of their brand new merch line that will be available the day of the season finale for us the viewers to purchase. It's all about them dollar bills, y'all. I mean, they have to if we want the possibility of Season 5, we gotta support this series somehow, and finally get the payoff of that My Tease back in Season 2, and of course, more girlfriends. What fascinates me about all of this is because, like I said, I didn't cut any of the chapters for this second core, so this has to be the outcome, right? An episode 24 with no real chapter to adapt. Sure, they could do their own variation of chapter 100, celebrating something else entirely, and that would be it. But much like the infamous speech that got adapted into the anime for season 2, that image from the commercial chapter is also kind of infamous in its own right. Now they have the opportunity to adapt it to the anime and promote new merchandise along the way? Talk about 2 birds with 1 stone, am I right? And please, Biebery, Bandai Namco, whoever else is in charge of the anime, make merch. We want to buy and support it. And by the end of a 4th season, you should have enough eyes on this series to warrant it. And plenty of girlfriends to do stuff with.
Stop. What do you mean by that?
We see all that merch you already make in Japan. Please bring us some of that worldwide already. Please. Whew. Well, that'll finally do it. Not only the Season 3 prediction video, but Season 4 to boot. With a wild merchandise prediction to fund Season 5 on top of that as well. We're in this for the long haul. Thank you all for everyone who has tuned in and stuck around for this long. If you're new here, like I said at the beginning of the video, I cover all things 100 Girlfriends. So if you're interested in the series, why not subscribe? Though, I would recommend getting caught up on the manga first. Or come back when the anime premieres, as I'll be doing live reactions when that airs later this year to see if my predictions were right, as well as be making live comparisons to the manga. It's a lot of fun, but it's time to wrap things up. I've been Moonlight150, and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you all later this year when Season 3 of the anime airs later this year. Oh, and probably when the trailer drops, I'll probably do a live reaction to that too. Yeah. See you all then.